Have you ever felt like the more you understand, the lonelier you become? As if the deeper you think, the further you drift from those around you. It's not your imagination. The world has always struggled to embrace deep thinkers, not because they are wrong, but because they make others uncomfortable. When you see what others overlook, question what they accept, and challenge what they find comforting, you don't just think differently. You disrupt the norm. And society has never been kind to those who do that. Throughout history, the greatest minds, Socrates, Nietzsche, Galileo, Tesla, were not celebrated in their time. Many were ridiculed, persecuted, or ignored. Not because they lacked wisdom, but because their insights exposed the limitations of the people around them. Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "The truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident." But what he didn't mention is that many thinkers never live long enough to see stage 3, because society does not seek truth, it seeks comfort. But why does this happen? Why do people resist those who think beyond the surface? The answer lies in the very nature of human psychology. When we encounter someone who is physically stronger, we admire them. When we see someone who is wealthy, we might envy them. But we don't necessarily feel threatened. But intelligence operates differently. Unlike physical strength or material success, intelligence is tied to self-perception. We define ourselves by our beliefs, our thoughts, and our understanding of the world. So when we meet someone who thinks on a deeper level, who questions what we take for granted, it feels less like an inspiration and more like an attack. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker does not just introduce new ideas, they reflect back the limitations of those around them. And people don't forgive that easily. It is easier to dismiss the thinker than to challenge one's own worldview. It's easier to mock the philosopher than to reconsider one's beliefs. And this is why intelligence often leads to isolation. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever tried to discuss a complex idea only to be met with blank stares? Have you noticed how quickly conversations shift when things get too deep? It's not because people are incapable of understanding. It's because they don't want to. The human brain is wired to protect itself from discomfort. This is why, in social settings, confidence is often more valued than intelligence. A person who speaks with certainty, even if their ideas are shallow, will be embraced before a thinker who speaks with nuance and complexity. Because people don't crave truth, they crave reassurance. This explains why simplistic, charismatic figures gain more influence than intellectuals who challenge the status quo. Throughout history, the most popular leaders, speakers, and influencers have been those who told people what they wanted to hear, not what they needed to hear. Meanwhile, those who question widely accepted beliefs often find themselves marginalized. This is the paradox of intelligence. The deeper your understanding, the more disconnected you become from the majority. And the resistance to deep thinking is not just social, it is biological. Modern neuroscience confirms that when people feel intellectually outmatched, their brain's amygdala, the part responsible for fear and threat detection, becomes highly active. In simple terms, intelligence does not just intimidate, it triggers a survival response, as if the deep thinker is not a teacher, but a threat. But why? Why does intelligence activate the same fear circuits as physical danger? The answer lies in evolution. For most of human history, survival depended not on being the smartest, but on being accepted by the group. Early humans thrived in tribes where social harmony meant protection. Being exiled from the group often meant death. This is why the human brain evolved to prioritize social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. When someone highly intelligent enters a group, they disrupt this balance. Their ideas challenge the tribe's norms, their presence threatens the status quo, and the group reacts, not with curiosity, but with resistance. A 2021 study at Stanford University found that people's rejection of deep thinkers is context-dependent. When they interact with an intellectual one-on-one, they feel less threatened. But in group settings, the resistance increases dramatically. This is because, in social groups, status matters more than truth. People do not just react to intelligence itself, they react to how it makes them look in comparison. If someone feels intellectually overshadowed, they will instinctively undermine or exclude the thinker to maintain their own social standing. Psychologists have identified several biases that explain why intelligence is often met with resistance. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with limited knowledge often overestimate their competence, while those who are truly knowledgeable tend to doubt themselves. This creates tension. Those who know little believe they know a lot, while those who think deeply struggle to be heard. Status quo bias explains why people prefer familiar ideas over disruptive ones, because change is uncomfortable. And the backfire effect reveals that when people are confronted with information that contradicts their beliefs, they do not reconsider. They become even more defensive. These cognitive biases ensure that intelligence, rather than being embraced, is often rejected. And in the digital age, this problem has only intensified. Social media algorithms prioritize engagement over depth. Controversial, emotionally charged content spreads faster than thoughtful, well-reasoned discussions. The more intellectual someone is, the harder it is for them to compress deep ideas into viral-friendly sound bites. This is why society increasingly favors entertainment over enlightenment, making it even harder for deep thinkers to be heard. So what does this mean for those who think deeply? The rejection of intelligence is not just cultural, it is biological, psychological, and systemic. It is built into human nature and reinforced by modern technology. But that does not mean deep thinkers should stop seeking truth. It simply means they must understand the forces working against them. Because if society resists intelligence, what it actually embraces is comfort. And in a world that values comfort over truth, the thinker's path will always be a lonely one. But perhaps, just perhaps, it is in that loneliness where true wisdom is found.